Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively. And you also need to be careful with your computer's defense as well. If you need a VPN, go Nord. NordVPN.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. So put in some dot balls and turn them into maidens via NordVPN.com/Kimber.
Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Scoreboard. Do you know what I like? I like a game in a tournament where we've had the most runs ever, where suddenly we get to the final and everyone's just like, we're just going to make it scrappy. We're just going to make it tough, gritty, grindcore kind of a game, right? The kind of game where when you look back at the scoreboard, you're like, so who is player of the match here? Who is the best player in this match? Is it, I don't know, one of the old fellas with the ball, Ashwin and Bolt. Bolt gets completely locked down his part of the game. And Ashwin realized that the wicket wasn't helping him, and then he had a bunch of right-handers to go up against, and he's just like, no, I'll work this out in my own way. What about Virat Kohli, who, because of his batting/fielding, if they had won, was probably player of the match himself? Rian Parag, there. Jaiswal, both of them playing incredibly mature innings. You could also have given player of the match to Rovman Powell in this game. Think about it. He hit the winning runs, and when just as they looked like they were about to fumble, he just completely took that last over around, and you think, well, he didn't make that many runs. That's fair. He took about 15 catches. That's not even possible. But considering the level of catching in this tournament, Rovman Powell certainly fielded on a completely different level to anywhere else. From an RCB perspective, are they good? Or did they just go on a bit of a run, which sometimes happen? I still don't have a really good answer for that. Where do they go from here? They're obviously going to retain Virat Kohli. KL Rahul might be on the market, as someone mentioned in our Cricket 8 watch-along. Faf is their captain, but probably won't be back. Do they go back to the Glenn Maxwell? What about Mohammad Siraj? Patidar is a lock. I have absolutely no idea where they are going to go, but I know where Rajasthan is going. Rajasthan is going into the final playoff game before the finals for a chance at the Big Cheese. And that is because they are fundamentally a better side than Rajasthan. Than RCB, even if they certainly gave it, made it a little bit more nervy than it needed to be. But let's have a go to the scoreboard. I'll get my words out here. Let's go to the scoreboard. Remember that you can send comments and super chats or whatever you'd like. I think there's already a really good one about Virat Kohli, which someone has said to me would make a very good video. And I think they're right. Why is this going down on me? All right, just 1 second. Oh, apparently everything's died. Muku, if you're listening at home, you will have to play an ad while I refresh. Oh, wait, we're all back. Wasn't that easy? Here we go. So just having a look at these two sides from today. RCB, probably because of the second half of the year, but also just because of Virat Kohli as much as anything, was a brilliant batting side in the power play and the middle overs. Trent Bolt completely ruined the power play, and Ashwin took a big part out of the rest of the game. The middle as well. And that really, really slowed down this game. And then you can see they are a plus bowling side in the power play, which I think is a good effort considering how they were bowling at one stage in the year. But this is where they needed the wickets, and this is where Jaiswal really ended that game against them. You know, that ability to just go, no, I'm going to play a proper innings. I'm not going to Jaiswal it up. I'm not going to try and slog balls from outside off stump over mid-on for 6 over and over again. If you bowl wide of off stump, I'm going to hit the balls to the offside, mostly along the ground. Really good batting. Collar Catmore not getting out was just as handy. 15 ball 20 in this chase was absolutely enough because it meant that there was going to have to be an epic collapse later on. And even though they flirted with it, it was never all that likely to happen. But let's just have a look at the strengths here. Power play with the ball, they're 21% better than other sides, and we saw that again today. Really, really important. The interesting thing with their bowling is that the middle overs have not been quite as good, despite the fact that they have two of the best spinners going around. It hasn't been all that good in that period. And then at the death, they managed to hang on so that it never got away from them. And then when they went out to bat, I mean, these numbers don't mean that much because it was a different opening batter, but I thought they did quite well. And then Hetmeyer coming in at the end, really, I was shocked when he went out because I just thought he was going to win the game with absolute ease. He really is a brilliant chaser and a finisher, and he kind of broke it with a couple of big boundaries there. So I think you can see from this shape just how it's a little bit more even on the Rajasthan side. And obviously on RCB, it's kind of batting, and then they bowl a little bit in the power play. Although they brought their numbers back quite well. 7.83, they just had to make sure they didn't lose a wicket in the power play. And up until Kohler Cadmore getting that incredible leg-cutting Yorker, they were doing that job correctly. But then they did put pressure back on afterwards. I think it was the first ball after the power play, and it might have even been Sanju Samson's first ball. He pulled a 6 from a loose delivery. And I really like the way that Samson and Jaiswal went about that period of looking for boundaries. But they did allow RCB just to pull back in a little bit before, obviously, they iced the game at the end. Strike rates, Jaiswal at 150 is absolutely fine. Rian Parag also played a very, very good innings. We'll be thinking about that Sanju Samson stumping for a long time to come. Jurel, I thought, looked really good today and then ran himself out, although I'm still not sure if Cameron Green actually had that in the right hands, but I think that decision could have gone either way. And then these two played their role. So if you look at this, he played the secondary role, right? Rather than being the guy who has to hit 6s and 4s, he went, no, that isn't my job today. That's really important. He played a really good innings as well and stretched them out, and so that these two guys could do their best work. Jaiswal's true values by bowling types this year. So you can see here, this is spin. He's not been out against spin so far. So 81 runs with a true strike rate of plus 43 and a true average of plus 38. Against pace bowling, it hasn't been as good. Specifically, he's looked to play a lot of these cross-bat sort of sloggy shots, and he's been out a couple of times trying to lap the ball over and everything else. I don't think he needs to do that. This isn't horrible, though, because if you have a look, his true average is minus 6, but his true strike rate is still plus 13. If this is a bad season for him, I think we're fine. What was quite interesting is that right arm pace is what has caused his biggest issues, right? That's not something that you would see all that much. I think he's just got to, if teams are going to bowl wide outside off stump to him, he's just got to smash that ball through the offside. And then if they want to pack the offside with two fielders out there, that's the only way of stopping him getting boundaries. Left arm finger spin, I thought it was incredibly funny that he came out against the left arm finger spinner today and essentially blocked that first over. And that's maturity and really, really clever. We were saying on Cricket 8 that we thought there was a possibility that this might be a Cameron Green day, and he bowled sensationally. But let's go through everyone. Swapnil bowled his first 2 overs, got away with the first one and got hammered. Siraj came back well when he got the reverse swing, but unfortunately he just never put enough pressure on it. If Siraj was going to win this game, it wasn't going to be at the end with the reverse swing, right? It was going to be at the start with the new ball. Why they gave the new ball to Swapnil? I mean, you might say it worked. I think you want your strike bowler to get the new ball. Yash Jayal had a pretty bad game. Lockie starting to look really good for New Zealand. The control of his slower balls, he was at pace. I mean, think of that over against Robin Powell at the end. He bowled a couple of really good deliveries there that if they just hit the fielders, could have put a lot more pressure on. They probably still lose that game, but I thought he did well. Khan Sharma got the wicket and then got hit. But Cameron Green, on wickets like this that help, that sort of, there was something about the short ball today, pace on and pace off, that players just didn't feel always consistently comfortable with. Cameron Green can bowl that ball and and the bounce. I'm wondering if we are now starting, and this is huge for Australia in the World Cup, if we are now starting to see Cameron Green work out white ball bowling, or if it's just a couple of games in a row where the pitches have helped him. This is his pitch map today. So we could see here a lot of short balls, a lot of back of the length balls as well. He's got his wicket in here, which was another back of a length ball. This I really like. This is a plan. And too often with Cameron Green, he bowls full, he bowls short, he bowls wide. He can't control his length. He's not sure what line he should go. Angling the ball in from back of a length is probably going to be his biggest skill, in any stage. And I think he should be looking for that more and more. But when wickets help him, you also have to be good with your captaincy and just go, okay, this is a Cameron Green day. This was a Cameron Green day. He probably gave them a chance of winning that, all things considered, they never deserved. And we'll talk about his batting in a little while. RCB, you see here, Trent Bolt really put the openers in a lock. His first 3 overs were really, really good, and he did an exceptional job there. But this is the bit where RCB really struggled a lot against the spinner. I think they have an over of pace in here as well, I want to say as well. But it really slowed them down. Obviously, they lost a few wickets, but they also looked confused. Patidar wasn't sure whether he should be going or not. Cameron Green saw the way Patidar was batting and thought to himself, I need to pull in. They did then go on a bit of a run where it looked like things were going to change, and then it faded away just because they lost too many wickets all the way through. This is the problem, and Sunrisers might come up against this as well, of going up against a team who has 5 wicket takers, right? That's the issue with going up against Rajasthan. Most teams don't have 2 wicket takers. RCB today, Kohli looked like he was going to play a really, really good innings. That strike rate probably on this pitch, all things considered, probably looks under. But he was trying to hit the 6 at that stage. If he gets that 6 away, I think he would have had a brilliant innings. Faf looked out of it again. He was all over the place. Rob Barron suggested the unders bet on Cricket 8, and that came up pretty easily. I think Green had about 3 balls where he looked like he was going to take over this game. And then he saw Patidar hit one straight up in the air, and he decided not to go that way. But then he did try a big slog off Ashwin, and it was really quite disappointing. Patidar's ended up with a good strike rate. I love Patidar, as everyone will be aware. I don't think it was a good innings. I really like Lomro's innings. Took the balls when they were in his area, put pressure back on Rajasthan, didn't slog, but also looked to score when things were in his favour. And sadly, Dinesh got a little bit caught there at the end. And I think the ball went a little bit soft. I think Dinesh Karthik's, and not that it matters because it's his last game, but I think Dinesh Karthik's at his best when the ball is really, really hard. And so that he can easily muscle it down the ground, and then he can also flip it back over his shoulder. I think when it's a little bit slower, and I think it got a little bit soft towards the end, which probably also is why Rajasthan struggled right towards the end of the game a little bit as well. I think it's a little bit harder for DK. None of that matters because DK is not playing anymore. This is not including today, but we can see Kohli's true values by period in the IPL. Do you remember when he said he didn't really trust the stats people or whatever it was, or he wasn't listening to them? This is what we've been looking for. This is a Virat Kohli who can come back next year. No one's going to have an issue with someone who scores 700 runs at a true strike rate of plus 11 at a true average of plus 35. Right? Any true strike rate that is plus for a big amount of runs is worth it. Right? It might not be perfectly suited to the way that T20 is, or the IPL was played this year, but I think there's a lot to like there about how he went about this year. This I find really, really fascinating. On the watch along on Cricket 8, I said early on, something about Sandeep just didn't look right today. The ball, something about his action, he was falling away on his left side, slinging a little bit more than regular. I think I was going to, because he's got such a good record against Kohli, I was going to back him when he was bowling against Kohli on the markets, and I was like, it's not for me. He's not bowling the way he should be. Avesh, we know he can go for runs, but we know he can take wickets. He did his job today. Chahal really tossed it up and looked for wickets today and probably got hit for, 2 or 3 big sixes, which affected his figures, but he was doing his job, right? And that's an important thing. But these old fellas, what did he have? 6 runs off his first 3 overs? Trent Bolt, if the ball swings, he just looks a different level than almost anyone else in this competition. And Ashwin. We will do a full video on Ashwin over on the main channel, but these are the things I really want to let you know at the moment. He had right-handers. It wasn't spinning as much for the finger spinners as it was the wrist spinners. And he just thought his way through. He was willing to bowl wides down the leg side. Although, what about that moment where Cameron Green patted away a wide? But he was willing to bowl wides down the leg side occasionally. He was bowling for singles, and then when he would attack, he was attacking from a position where they had to take a risk against him. And I just was really, really impressed with the way he went about his bowling today. These are his true values by season. So we could see that all things considered, he hasn't had a great year, right? He hasn't taken as many wickets so far this year. He's never been a huge plus wicket taker, but you can see in here a lot of par wicket years. And then you could see that he is half a run over better than normal. Again, it's not in one of his best years. This will take this up, obviously, probably more towards here. So another one of his par years, and that's fine. And even if it's on the back end of that, that's more than fine. But this is why you have players like him in big games, right? He's not a great IPL player in the way that he is a great test player, but his ability in a big game to think his way through a situation is so important. And if he'd been needed with the batting, he would have done that too. This is Bolt's swing in the power play today. This is, I think, this was the full toss. This is a ball that went down the leg side because it swung too much. But the important thing is, you'll see there's not as much swing later on here, but he still gets a couple of balls to straighten. And when you're playing batters like Faf du Plessis and Virat Kohli, what Bolt is really doing is, if he can keep the ball swinging, it keeps them in check. Because they automatically, as proper batters, think to themselves, we've got to respect him, we've got to respect him. And to be honest, this year, especially in the first over, everyone... I don't care how good you are. Almost no one has taken him down. His run totals in the first over has been ridiculous. But his ability to swing it a little bit in the second over and a little bit in the third over is really important, because proper batters will just go a little bit more... I was going to say defensive. Defensive is the wrong way against it. Well, I suppose defensive is right. They'll just be a little bit more careful, which means they won't be going for him, which gets them a couple more low-scoring overs. And they have the ability through Ashwin and Chahal to be quite good in the middle overs as well. However, here is Chahal. First 5 matches, economy 1.7 runs better than average, and he was taking a lot more wickets than he should have been as well. 1.66 wickets plus. Ridiculous. That has regressed. He's only taken 7 wickets in the next 8 matches. He's going at 2 runs and over more than he should have, and he's taking wickets at about par. So he's roughly around here. And you would expect better, especially as obviously India has just taken him to the World Cup. But this is the 2 bowlers and where they landed the ball today. You can just see the difference of a couple of times Chahal had to bowl really, really defensive, and his option is to bowl defensive wide, right, to come out here. And you can see with Ashwin, when he was bowling defensive, it was down the leg side, right, trying to cramp them up and bowl for a single. Chahal doesn't have that as a wrist spinner in the same way that Ashwin does. So they're very different kinds of bowlers. And Ashwin, this is probably a wicket where being a defensive bowler helped a little bit, and perhaps being an attacking bowler did not in Chahal's case. But it's still a little bit disappointing for Chahal. What did I say before? 3 sixes. Yeah, you can see the 3 sixes in there. But this isn't horrendous. He's overpitched 3 times. Some of this was defensive bowling. He's basically put the ball where he wanted to. It's just that for whatever reason, he's not getting the results he did before. But this grouping is very, very special. And I thought it was excellent from him. That's the end of the scoreboard part of the show. So we will come back after this break with your questions. We've already got a couple of super chats in there, so thank you to those people. As I said, there's a really good one in there as well. But they're all good. Everyone's good. Well, RCB, maybe that's debatable because they're going home. But everyone else is good.
This is brought to you by Cricket 8. They are a new player in the game trying to educate fans on what is really happening in cricket. We have a partnership with them where we host live watch-alongs, do podcasts, and write articles. If you want to know what is really happening with our game, visit cricket8.com. If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now.
Questions, a couple of super chats to get to. Where are we? Girish is back. I'm heartbroken as usual being a diehard RCB fan. Can your heart re-break? Isn't it already like so broken that it was never back together to break again? I love this team like family, but seeing the never-ending line of hitters from Rajasthan, I was wondering if RCB lose every year at the auction before a single ball is bowled. I think the auction is probably their biggest issue. There's something within that franchise where they don't really rate bowlers, and I think part of it is having a batting-friendly pitch. And so their bowler, well, even when they spend big money on bowlers, they have slightly inflated numbers. And so they think to themselves, well, these aren't actually working, whereas maybe they are. I might be going too far. If they're going to be the best batting side in the world, they need to get 2 great bowlers and bat to number 9. Right? And that's what they need to look at doing. If they're not going to do that, then they need to start getting some bowlers. But I just think it's a messy franchise and they make mistakes when they shouldn't. Girish says, is there any other franchise in sport that has underperformed as much as RCB but enjoys such incredible adulation? I think you need to find the New York Knicks in the basketball. That would be one off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of some other sports. Somerset might be another one. Through the history of their cricket, might have been another one. Somerset fans are legit. They're the county fans in my view. Trying to think of some other sports. I mean, there must be some football clubs out there that I'm not thinking of as well. And obviously, traditionally the Chicago baseball teams, I suppose, would be another one, and the Red Sox would have been the other big one back in the day in baseball. So those are the ones off the top of my head. But yeah, isn't it great that RCB have managed to find their way to the top of one list, even if it's not the one they want to be in? Ruja says, how would you grade Kohli's season this year? So in our chat, this one came up from you, Rudra. So thank you very much for putting it in. It's an interesting one because it's not a negative season, but in a year where you needed to be absolutely explosive at the top, is that sort of middling strike rate. And I'm only saying middling for this year because any other year, these numbers would be incredible. Is that middling strike rate all that important? That's one question I would have. But if you know one guy's going to make 700 runs at whatever his average was, really, and you have a bunch of hitters who can all hit 4s and 6s at will, surely he just bats through the season and everyone else hits. But the way that this year was sort of set up, I don't know how many times they could out-bat sides in the way that Kolkata and Sunrisers could, and maybe even Delhi. And so does Kohli have to push even harder? But then, let's say he makes 500 runs at a strike rate of plus 30, and gets his strike rate up 20 higher or something. Is that actually making a difference? It's a really good question. I probably won't get around to it before the next IPL, but I think it's a really fascinating question. It's definitely not a bad season, right? But is it the season that really put them in a good position to win a title? It's probably not. But at the same time, you got way more out of Kohli in terms of runs, strike rate, and average than you normally would. So there's like 93 different versions on that. Nasty Badger says, my question is, RCB the most mismanaged team in all sports? I mean, they had big-time players. I feel they hired the wrong coaches. You have to be the right guy to be a lead. They're probably not the most mismanaged side. They're not as someone who's worked in cricket, they are not the most mismanaged side I've worked for in cricket. And it wasn't Melbourne Stars or Scotland, I can tell you that. So, no, they're not. But big league team with this amount of money, I don't know what these sides do at the end of these seasons. I would hire an auditor. It would probably be someone like me I would hire. I'm trying to think of someone else. Maybe even someone like Tim Wigmore. You want someone like with a journalistic background that also understands data and everything else, that understands cricket stuff. Maybe you get like someone who's like who's a professional person in cricket, but from outside of India. I think you want a clean slate, someone who has no stake in the game at all. So a former cricketer who's really smart, who's really accomplished in business, maybe a lawyer or an accountant or something like that, and you just audit it step by step. That should be the next 2 months they should be doing, right? It's not about wrong coaches. I'm not saying they have the right coach or the wrong coach, but it's not about wrong coaches. It's about why do they end up with these coaches? Why are they ending up with these players? Why do the same patterns keep coming up again and again? Shreyan says, what do you think of the USA-Bangladesh game? I didn't see it, sadly. It was obviously something that I didn't quite get to follow the way I would have. I watched Bangladesh play against Zimbabwe, and I was not impressed by that team at all. I thought they were quite poor in that tournament. I haven't done my full ranking, so I don't know if I have for the IPL, the T20 World Cup coming up in a couple of weeks, a week and a half, whenever it is. I'm really disappointed with them as a T20 side, but I have been for a long time. But yeah, really, the way they played against Zimbabwe, now losing to the USA, anything could happen in these games, but not ideal. All right, let's take a quick break here, and we'll get to a couple more questions. This is, and just a reminder to everyone, we do the watch-alongs on Cricket 8, which is another YouTube channel, and you can go over there. We'll be back on Friday and on Sunday, and there's plenty of other content. We've done other podcasts where I've talked to Rob and Jack as well about what is going on in that game. But quick break here, and then I'll finish off with any more questions from the room here on the scoreboard with Jared Kimber.
This is brought to you by Cricket 8. They are a new player in the game trying to educate fans on what is really happening in cricket. We have a partnership with them where we host live watch-alongs, do podcasts, and write articles. If you want to know what is really happening with our game, visit cricket8.com. If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now.
There's not many questions left. Let's have a look to come in. But yeah, let me get to the last couple, and then we can head off. So I've got another video to make. Abraham says, if you lose a toss in Ahmedabad, you should just forfeit the match. I get it, but what about that toss was unfair? Right? It wasn't like the wicket was going anywhere. There was a little bit of swing early on. It wasn't spinning massively for both spinners. It was more a wrist spinning thing, but the wrist spinners probably all ended up with a few runs off their bowling. To be fair, I thought Khan Sharma did okay for a while there. What was unfair about the two innings? There was a little bit of dew, but I don't think the dew played a big part in it. I just think that Rajasthan outplayed RCB all the way through. But I understand what you're saying. Abdullah says, Jared, why was Sri Lanka banned for political interference, but Jay Shah is literally the son of an influential minister and Mohsin Naqvi is the interior minister? Could you explain the difference? Yes. Sri Lanka asked to be banned. Sri Lanka cricket was so sick and tired of, I think it was the sports minister and the prime minister using it as a political football, that the reason why the political interference thing works is, as far as I'm aware, there's only been one case where a cricket side was banned or a cricket board was banned for political interference, where it had just gone on, it was too bad. And I think it was something to do with mismanagement in Zimbabwe cricket. And there was a lot of issues there, so the ICC came in. Every other time that it's been used or threatened to be used, it's usually been by people running cricket, going to the ICC and say, can you leak that there's a chance that we might be banned here? Or can you ban us? Because we have to stop the politicians doing what they are doing, right? Well, Jay Shah's not going to do that on himself. And also, you can be the son of an influential minister and run cricket. Now, we all know that Jay Shah is not really the person in charge, most probably, of these decisions, which is probably what you're alluding to. But Imran Khan just completely changed the first-class setup when he was in charge. There's been political interference right across all cricket boards. But yeah, generally, that rule now is used by cricket boards who want to get out from under government ministers or presidents or prime ministers at that stage to be able to move things forward. Cosmic Key says, does RCB have the worst scouting? No single uncapped talent has emerged from RCB except for Chahal.
A lot of people complain that I'm not a former cricketer and so that I don't really know the game. Well, you know what they can't claim? That I don't know desks. I've been using desks for years. I'm a collector of desks, old and new, and I'm sitting on a new one right now. I'm the Don Bradman of sitting at desks. So when I tell you that the E7 Pro next generation height adjustable desk from FlexiSpot is legit, this is like Michael Jordan talking to you about sneakers. This desk holds 160 kilograms. It is as stable as anything I've ever seen, and it has under-desk cable management. But really, the main skill here is that this desk rises and falls at the push of a button, and it moves super quick. And it has so many settings that remember your favorite heights. It really does it all. And I could not recommend the E7 Pro from FlexiSpot anymore, even though I am currently sitting on one of FlexiSpot's BS12 Pro multifunctional, adjustable, upgraded fabric, ergonomic chairs. My butt and computer have never been happier than when using one of FlexiSpot's products. So get over to their page right now for big savings.
Nothing more annoying than in the middle of answering the last question, you lose all your Wi-Fi. I have no idea about that, but obviously I'm in the Cricket 8 studios and perhaps someone was unplugging something in the main studio. But apologies for that. Yeah, look, I think this is good. I don't know as much about the scouting networks of RCB. If I had probably got a job, it might have been something that would have eventually come to me. But not ending up there, it wasn't something that that really became anything. So I never really delved into it. I do know I've looked at some of the scouting networks of teams, and some of the teams are just kind of, what's the best way of putting it? They're just picking under 19 players, or they're picking players of particular types and hoping they come together. I think scouting in cricket is still quite amateur. So I wouldn't be surprised. And there's so many off-field problems with RCB that what you have said, Cosmic, makes sense. But I don't have the proof to be able to tell you that outside of what you've just said, which makes sense, right? Where are all these players that are really good? That's it for me today. We'll be back on Friday for another scoreboard. And we'll be over on the main channel having a look at some of the aspects of this game as well. I'm Jared Kimber. Remember to like and subscribe and do all those things. Go over to Cricket 8, like and subscribe over there. And we will be back with more and more stuff, certainly more scoreboards. Actually, we'll be back with precisely 2 more IPL scoreboards. But I'm sure we'll be back with a lot more stuff as well. And we will see you again very, very soon.